Alright, let's dive into a playbook that tackles a huge and honestly a super frustrating challenge for anyone in neurology brand management. We're talking about how a fantastic brand, a really good drug, somehow gets left on the shelf. This is the strategy for fixing what we call brand pick drift. It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, you've got a clinically sound, effective therapy. The science is rock solid. But for whatever reason, it's just not getting picked up by neurologists nearly as often as it should be. So why? What is going on here? And here's the big twist, the crucial insight you have to get. The problem isn't the molecule. It's not about your efficacy data or your safety profile. The real barrier is behavioral. It's all about what actually happens in the day-to-day chaos of a real-world neurology clinic. What we're actually up against is this subtle but incredibly powerful force we call the silent drift. It happens under the surface kind of quietly, shaping market share while nobody's really paying attention. Okay, so let's define brand pick drift because this is key. This is not about rejection. Neurologists aren't looking at your brand and doubting it. The truth is they're just not thinking about it. It's simply absent from their daily workflow because prescribing has become so anchored in habit. And this is absolutely critical. Throwing more sales reps or more ads at this problem is not gonna work. You just can't persuade your way out of a presence problem. The goal isn't to convince them more, it's to be there more, but in the right way at the right time. So let's see how this drift actually builds up inside a real clinic. You have to understand that a neurology clinic runs less on pure academic logic and way more on just managing the insane cognitive load of the day. And right here, this is the big disconnect. Clinical guidelines, yeah, they're great for starting a therapy, but once a patient is stable, the high-pressure reality of the clinic completely takes over. Habit and just plain old familiarity are what guide the long-term journey. The brand that's easiest to recall, the one that's top of mind, that's the one that wins. This creates the first huge pain point for any challenger brand. Think about it. For a super busy neurologist, switching a stable patient to a different brand, well, that's cognitively expensive. It takes real mental effort. So unless there is a massive flashing red light of a reason to change, habit just keeps the old incumbent right where it is. Then there's the second pain point, and it is a nasty one. It's this vicious feedback loop. Low usage means neurologists just don't have much real-world experience with your brand. Less experience means lower recall and, less confidence. And that, of course, just leads right back to continued low usage. It's a cycle that's almost impossible to break with traditional marketing. And finally, the third pain point. Ask yourself, where does your brand actually show up in their world? For most brands, it's during a sales call. But come on, we know trust isn't built in a sales pitch. It's built in the daily grind. Your brand is completely absent from the moments of actual clinical utility, the places where habits are truly forged. Okay, so if the problem is presence, then the solution is all about finding the right place to be present. We have to identify the real battlefield, that precise moment in time where we can actually have an influence and do it ethically. First, let's be clear on where not to be. Preconceived? The clinic is focused on patient anxiety, on triage. A brand mentioned there is just intrusive noise. And at the point of prescription, well, the decision has already been made, locked in by habit. Yeah, just too vague. But here it is. This is the sweet spot. The high-frequency, high-trust moment is during clinic triage and red flag assessment. This is a recurring operational task for the entire clinic staff. And if you can provide real value here, you can earn your place right inside their workflow. And that brings us to the actual solution framework. It's a simple but really powerful three-step process. Enter, embed, and default. This is all about earning a legitimate place inside the clinic, not trying to force your way in. Let's walk through it. First, you enter by providing something genuinely useful, a practical tool the clinic actually wants to use. Then you embed your brand by having it appear ethically and repeatedly in the background of their professional life. And finally, you become the default choice, not because you persuaded them, but because you've become familiar, trusted, and just mentally available. So what does this look like in the real world? Think practical, helpful clinic utilities. Maybe a simple neuro red flag system that helps them triage patients more efficiently. Or a clinic-branded patient education microsite for the epilepsy patients. These tools provide real value, and in return, the brand gets that high-frequency, ethical presence we've been talking about. Okay, so if we're not just chasing prescriptions anymore, how in the world do we measure success? Well, this requires a whole new measurement model, one that's focused on the leading indicators of behavioral change, not just the lagging ones. So instead of only looking at sales lift, you track progress through these layers. Clinic adoption tells you if you've earned permission to be in their workflow. Usage frequency shows you if you're building a habit. HCP exposure tracks your mental availability. These are the metrics that prove the strategy is working, long before the final sales numbers even start to move. And look, if you take only one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. The strategy isn't about being the loudest voice in the room anymore. It's about becoming part of the room itself, standing right where neurologists already do their work every single day. So the final question you need to ask yourself is this. Is your brand just a visitor in the clinic? Someone who just shows up for a sales call now and then? Or are you truly building a way to become a trusted, valuable part of their clinical ecosystem? Because that right there is the difference between being overlooked and becoming the default.